Hi, I'm Malcolm. I'm the CDO of Profisee. We do something called MDM, end of sales pitch. I've been with Profisee for a couple of years now. Prior to that, I was an analyst at Gartner, where I wrote the last 3 magic quadrants for MDM, where I was an analyst supporting MDM and data governance and data strategy inquiries, as we say at Gartner. I was given the distinct honor of speaking to no fewer than 1,500 CIOs, CDOs, VPs of data and analytics about their challenges related to MDM, governance, and data strategy. So I am deeply rooted in the world of data and analytics. I know there's a world of knowledge management. I kind of knew a little bit about it. Like we were talking earlier about insight engines, and it was kind of this world over here. I was kind of searchy, but it really wasn't data and analytics. It was a separate world. So just keep that in mind as I speak today. I come from a world of data and analytics, and frankly, we need to find a way to bring that world of classic data and analytics, data management, closer to knowledge management. That's the very heart of my discussion today. So prior to joining Gartner, I worked for this little data provider called Dun & Bradstreet. My title was Distinguished Architect. I've run an IT function for a $2 billion publicly traded company. I've implemented data governance programs. I've implemented a data strategy. I have implemented MDM 4 times, 3 of which were dismal failures. You may ask yourself, why MDM? I would say MDM is very much a semantic layer. If you say it's not, we'll have a great argument about that. But anyway, hey, let's cut to the chase. We're going to talk today about next generation semantic layers. Disclaimer, this is my safe harbor statement. What you will hear and see today is very forward-looking. And this is, at times, I suspect, a little conceptual. And for some of the people who've been doing knowledge management a while, some of what I say today will be like, duh, right? But for others in the room, it will be, for the data people like me, it'd be like, oh, wow, I never thought of things that way. But this is very, very forward-looking, so please keep that in mind. All right. Who knows who the great one is? Yeah, there's some hands. Okay, right on. Okay. Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player to ever play. His record speaks for itself. #1 in career goals, #1 in career assists, playoff goals, playoff assists, 4-time NHL Stanley Cup champion with my oh-so-beloved Edmonton Oilers. I was born and raised in this city called Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and where I got the honor of watching Gretzky and Messier and Esa Tikkanen and Yari Curry and so many amazing, Paul Coffey, so many amazing players play in the 80s and 90s. I actually had the opportunity to meet Wayne many times. I was a young lad working at a golf course, picking up balls in a driving range and cleaning golf clubs and cleaning golf shoes. And Wayne was a member at my club. Just so happens that Wayne and I have the same size feet. Don't ask me how we figured this out, but we do. And he would often forget his golf shoes. And he borrowed my golf shoes multiple times. So a small, fun story. Wayne Gretzky, the great one. What makes Wayne Gretzky the great one? Well, it's certainly not because he's physically imposing. He's not. Maybe 5'10", 175, 180 pounds. He's not a big dude. If you ask Wayne Gretzky what his secret to success is, what he will say is a lesson that his father, Walter, taught him, which is don't skate to where the puck is going, or wait, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going. This is a metaphor I will repeat through my presentation today about the need to skate where the puck is going. I guess I have to go here. Oh, so fun side question here. Who knows who this gentleman is? Anybody? Oh, no hockey, a couple. All right. So arguably, this is the best German-born hockey player. His name is Leon Draisaitl, an unbelievable player who also plays for my beloved Edmonton Oilers. They came this close to winning a Stanley Cup this year. Next year, we will do it, and we will do it largely because of 2 gentlemen, Connor McDavid and this gentleman, Leon Draisaitl, amazing player. All right, so what are we here to talk about today? Where is the puck going, as it were, metaphor speaking? Again, some of you knowledge-centric people will say, yes, it's always been about knowledge management. But in my world, data and analytics, we need to start embracing this idea of knowledge management because historically we largely have not. I would argue where we have been, where the puck has been, is data management, and where the puck is going absolutely is knowledge management. And there's a huge schism here. There is a divide we need to figure out how to build a bridge across. I've had a lot of coffee this morning. I've had a lot, and this is strong German coffee. I'm kind of jittery. Whew. I was so excited because I found it was like drip coffee, like American-style drip coffee, and because I've been in the UK for a few days and drinking horrible coffee, and I came here, and I've just been doing this, and probably not a good idea. I speak at conferences a lot. I get to talk to a lot of different data leaders around the world. And in the last couple of years, it's very, very interesting. I've heard this, a lot of CDOs are saying, okay, well, the world is changing. The world is rapidly changing. It's clear. We can see that the world is changing. So what do I need to do? I need to double down on foundations. I've heard this over and over and over and over again. I must double down on foundations. But what happens if the world is literally moving under your feet? I would argue the world is moving under our feet. There's a tectonic shift that is happening in the world of data and analytics, that is happening in the world of knowledge management. There's a shift happening, and the world is moving under our feet. So if we double down on foundations, are we going to be going to where the puck is or where the puck is going? If I embrace old ways of governing data, if I embrace old ways of managing and mastering data or integrating data, will that serve me in the future? I would argue it will not. And if we double down on the foundations of where things have been, the status quo, arguably what we've been doing with most data governance programs for the last 20 years is doubling down on the status quo. Einstein would have something to say about that, about doing the same thing over and over and over again. Talk about that a little bit more. I can't think of a better way to kind of encapsulate some of the things that I'm going to share with you today that I'm going to play, hopefully this works, a little 2-minute video clip of my favorite podcast. Anybody heard of the All In podcast? Anyone? It's very American-centric, but there's 4 gentlemen. They're all very, very smart. They're entrepreneurs, they're software people, and they kind of get it. And I think this is a great way to tee up some of the things I'm going to share with you after this little video. Yeah, that would explain a lot.
What a system.
Okay, here we go.
The second point is that when you have agents, I think that we are overestimating what a system of record is. David, what you talked about is actually just an encrypted file, or it's a bunch of rows in some database, or it's in some data lake somewhere. You don't need to spend tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to wrap your revenue in something that says it's a system of record. You don't need that, actually. You can just pipe that stuff directly from Stripe into Snowflake, and you can just transform it and do what you will with it and then report it.
I'll tell you
could do that today. It's just that
that's an interesting point.
Through steak dinners and golf outings and all this stuff, we've sold CIOs this idea that you need to wrap it in something called a system of record. And all I'm saying is, when you confront the total cost of that versus what the alternative that is clearly going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years, irrespective of whether any of us build it or not,
it'll be
you will not be able to you just won't be able to justify it because it's going to cost a fraction of the price.
I'll say there's probably also an aspect of this that we can't predict what is going to work with respect to data structure. So right now, all of the tooling for AI is on the front end, and we haven't yet unleashed AI on the back end. Which is, if you told the AI, here's all the data ingest I'm going to be doing from all these different points in my business, figure out what you want to do with all that data. The AI will eventually come up with its own data structure and data system
that's
will look nothing. That will look nothing like
that's already happening.
Right, and so that's nothing like what we have today. In the same vein that we don't understand how the translation works in an LLM, we don't understand how a lot of the function works. A lot of the data structure and data architecture we won't understand clearly because it's going to be obfuscated by the model driving the development.
All right. So some really, really insightful things there. As an MDM guy, when I heard system of record going away, I was like, what? Because we like to think that MDM is a bit of a system of record. But really 2 things to take away from this snippet. First was the first gentleman, Chamath Palihapitiya, who I actually used to work with at AOL a number of years ago, super smart guy. What he's talking about is the system of record going away. This was in the context, because context matters. They had just had Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce.com, as a guest, where basically what Chamath is saying is that business applications like ERP, CRM, HRIS, ITSM, that those will increasingly be commoditized and that they will basically disappear, he thinks, where it will be end-user facing applications, e-commerce sites, websites, where data is captured from those, dropped into a warehouse, and magic just happens. The magic is going to be, of course, AI. We'll talk about that a little bit more. The second gentleman, David Freeberg, what he was really talking about was the most interesting thing to me, which is the idea of turning AI loose on the back end. And then when we do that, do we have the ability to kind of, what he said, obfuscate a lot of the data management, a lot of the data quality, a lot of the semantics, and make things just work? Make them just work. What we're talking about is just piping data into a warehouse and figuring it all out. I don't actually happen to think that there won't be anything in the middle. I happen to believe that there will be what I'm calling a next generation semantic layer sitting in the middle, acting as a translation layer. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But I just found this really, really interesting to have some kind of mainstream, kind of big brain folks talking about my world, like MDM.
The second point.
Stop. Okay. Although I listened to that again. So we're going to talk about 5 things today. High level. What are some of the forces that are changing the way, that are moving the ground under our feet? What are they? Why are they important? What are some of the biggest roadblocks to embracing these changes? How do we as practitioners and professionals make money in this world? How do we help our organizations better position themselves for these changes? What's the solution? Spoiler alert, I think it's something called the next gen semantic layer. I'll just say that right now. And what's needed to deliver on that solution? So what's changing? Well, I don't think anybody in the world would argue that AI is driving a massive disruption in our world. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are talking about the AI bubble bursting. I find that proposition rather laughable. Within days of ChatGPT being released, teenagers around the globe were using it to do their homework. Right? If that's not a use case, I don't know what is. Yes, there's a lot of spending going on infrastructure, but the exact same thing was happening at the beginning of the internet. The exact same thing was happening at the internet. I think AI will fundamentally change how we do business, how we manage data, how we manage knowledge, and how our society even functions. And if you disagree, cocktail hour, 5 o'clock tonight, 6th floor, let's have a chat about that. I think that AI is really what is driving all of this, and I don't see it changing. There is a divide, however. Now, again, keep in mind, I'm a data and analytics guy. I'm on the left-hand side of this diagram, right? In the left-hand side of this diagram, what we have done is built systems to optimize, transactional reads and writes of data at scale, right? I would argue the left-hand side is largely the world of structured data. It is the data needed by our analytics platforms. It's the data needed by our CRM systems, our HRIS systems, and that is highly structured, highly known, governed, managed, stewarded. Insert all the adjectives here on the left-hand side. The right-hand side is the world of large language models and AI. Now, I know some of you may be saying, hey, AI is more than large language models. That is true. And when we start talking about turning AI loose on the back end, it will not only be Gen AI, it will be other forms of AI. It will be ML, it will be causal AI. It'll be all forms of AI, I think, working together to solve some fairly complex problems. However, I do believe that LLMs are game-changing or different, because they act like us, they talk like us, they even arguably think like us. And they will be what we are interfacing with the most. So I think that there will be things happening under the covers where there are multiple forms of AI that are running, but I think what we will interact with are largely smart agents. That's LLM. That world is the world of unstructured data. Large language models are built on and optimized by unstructured data. Text, narratives, stories, AKA knowledge. Right-hand side, knowledge. Left-hand side, data. We've got a gap. I'm sure most of you already know this. This is a helpful tool for me, the hierarchy, the DIKW hierarchy, that says that data is sitting on the bottom of this. Information is data plus context. Above that, we've got knowledge. Above that, we've got wisdom. Knowledge is the ability to apply information in a real-world use case. Wisdom, today, is the unique domain of human beings. Thank goodness. If one day the AI becomes wise, well, then we've got a lot bigger problems. This is what's called AGI, artificial generalized intelligence. If the machines can solve problems in novel ways that we could never anticipate, that's game-changing and that's a different world, and I think we're racing towards that. I think we need to be thinking a little bit more about that. But for now, I find this a very, very useful tool to help understand the difference between data. Data is the intersection of a row and a column. In and of itself, a data point, largely useless. I don't know anything about it. There's no context, right? First name, last name. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I like to buy. I don't know what my buying propensities are, and on and on. So we need to find a way to bridge the bottom layer to the third layer in order to help fuel this AI-driven revolution. I've got a picture on the right-hand side. This is a gentleman named T.S. Eliot. He's a poet, largely attributed to creating, or at least the first person to even suggest that this DIKW framework exists. He wrote a poem in 1934 where he was opining about man's relationship with God and talked about, actually, information and knowledge and wisdom, which I found very, very interesting. I thought it's, appropriate for a semantic symposium to be talking about poetry and how it relates to what we do with data every day. I titled this slide, The Future of Information Technology. I would argue this slide is the future of just about everything. It's the future of business management. It's the future of what we do day in and day out. It's the future of MDM. It's the future of semantic layers. Left-hand side, humans are largely deciding. Humans are making the rules. Humans are defining the governance policies. Right-hand side, machines are doing it all. Mostly all of it. I would argue we are somewhere right here. We have just started early on this journey towards augmentation, which is the idea that machines are helping us. Machines are suggesting better ways to do things. And in the future, I don't know when that will be, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, we will flip from mostly human-driven and machine-assisted to mostly machine-driven and human-assisted. This will be a fundamental shift. I'm not entirely sure that society is kind of ready for this. Well, in fact, I know we're not. But I see this as being inevitable. By the way, this is not a spectrum. This is a one-way street. And it's only going one way. It's going to the right. It's not going backwards. As we say in the US, this horse is out of the barn. And it is racing wildly over here. Some would say uncontrollably. But the horse is out of the barn. We're not going back. We're only going this way. Notice on the bottom layer here, I would argue data, been good enough. And I think right now what we're doing is we're kind of finding ways to make this all work, to make the gap, to bridge the gap between data and knowledge. But I do see a future where knowledge management becomes the default paradigm for what is sitting in our databases. Instead of databases, maybe they're knowledge bases. Yes, I said that. But I do see there being a massive, massive shift here. And yeah, eventually it's going to be mostly machines, mostly. Of course, there will be audit and compliance and other regulatory-driven things that will make us and make humans need to sign off on things and still be accountable for things. But I think this is happening. And again, if you disagree, let's talk about it over a cocktail later. Why is this important? Well, good grief. I mean, I'm a believer. Maybe you're not a believer in AI. Maybe you think it's a parlor trick. I don't, at least Gen AI. Because this is what I see happening. What I see happening is if we are able to extract knowledge out of our data, right? Today we have got structured data sitting, all of the data we know about our customers and our suppliers, our manufacturing processes, all of it is largely sitting in these structured forms that is unactionable because it has no context, because it has no knowledge. If we are able to extract knowledge from our legacy data sets, I would argue we can use that knowledge to inform large language models or maybe smaller language models, maybe customized models that are built around the language of business. I would argue quote to cash is a business. It's a language. Procure to pay is a language. That language is largely shared across most of the companies that are doing procure to pay or quote to cash or onboarding a new supplier. These languages all largely sound the same and they all largely look the same. Those business processes all largely look the same. If we can start to extract knowledge out of legacy systems, we can feed that knowledge into AI-based systems to start automating the management of data. Who's familiar with data observability? This concept of data observability. Okay, I am. The concept of data observability is one that we can look at transactional data associated to data pipelines. We can look at signal data in data pipelines. We can apply machine learning to start to predict when data pipelines will fail, right? We're already doing this in large manufacturing organizations where we can start to predict when machines will fail, when buses will fail, when public infrastructure will fail. We can do the exact same thing from a data perspective, but at larger scale, meaning we can start to have the data tell us when it is fit for purpose, when it is high quality, when it is low quality. Because we'll know this process went faster than this process. Why did that process go faster? Why was that supplier onboarded faster? It was done because the data was better. It was higher quality. It was more fit for purpose. It had governance policies that were appropriate for the use case. We can start to automate data quality. Yes, I said it. People's like, oh, you can't automate data quality. Yes, we can automate data quality. We can automate data management. We can even automate data governance, I would argue. Because data governance is a language. It's a language of policies. It's a language of control. Today, we try to do this one-size-fits-all approach to data governance when the language of marketing is very different than the language of finance, and they're both right. AI will help us to build multiple languages and have multiple translations based on context in the business. When we do that, when we improve this data automatically, the business processes will improve. We'll have better analytical insights. We'll have better business performance. And we're going to make a ton of money doing it. This is why there's an arms race, just a small reason why. I mean, mapping the human genome, solving difficult problems, diseases, all sorts of, there's a lot of reasons why AI is blowing up, but this, in my world, I'm totally excited about this. I would argue that AI, in essence, LLMs plus other forms of AI, will create basically a new business operating system. It'll be that middle layer that they were talking about in the podcast. It will be a next-gen semantic layer that will form the foundation of what I'm calling a business operating system. Just like the internet became some new form of a computing platform, just like the cloud became a new form of computing platform, so will this. So will this. And it's going to allow us to automate data management, and it's going to allow us to automate business process management. I would argue. Again, maybe you disagree. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I mean, there are so many superlatives about the value of AI, right? What, $14 trillion in net contributions to global GDP. Some of them talking about being larger than the GDP of the UK. 90% of Fortune 1000 companies think that this will be accretive and this will be a good thing. Again, the horse is out of the barn. We're not going backwards. I believe there is incredible business and societal value in AI in the short term. When we start talking about AGI, things get a little dark pretty quick. And I don't want to talk about that today because I want to be upbeat and excited and optimistic. All right, so if there's bags of money to be made, what are some of our roadblocks? I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I need to be mindful of time. One is legacy systems, of course. Our legacy systems, I would argue, are a massive roadblock. Our CRM systems, our HRIS systems, ITSM, ERP, you name it, billions and billions of dollars invested in things like SAP and JD Edwards and Oracle and on and on and on. The thing to take away here, folks, is not that these systems need to be ripped and replaced, because they won't be. How many people are involved in a multi-year SAP upgrade right now? Come on, you can admit it. Yeah, see, I knew it. There's always several. There's always several. Like 4 to 5 year upgrade process for moving SAP to the cloud is mind-boggling. I should have been an SAP consultant. Anyway, my point here is these systems are not going away. So what we need to figure out is how to build a bridge from those legacy systems that are rows and columns, largely structured, highly deterministic, highly rules-driven. AI is not, it's probabilistic, right? That's a problem in and of itself. How do we go from where we are to where we need to be? How do we break away from this without actually ripping out all these systems? Because the idea they'll be ripped out is a fool's errand. They won't be. They'll still be there. And by the way, they're going to fight. All of them will fight to remain relevant, right? You can use, co-pilots today to start building replacements to some of these systems. I'm not saying that you should go build your own CRM. There's a lot of work there. But people are already doing it. People are already doing it, where they're using Copilots to write code, and some of the code here is pretty good. There are even open source versions of CRM where you could build on top of it. Anyway, sorry. I don't want to create any mayhem here about telling you to go build your own CRM system. My point being, these systems will not go away, and they're going to fight for their market share. They're going to fight to remain relevant. Well, this is relevant to the room, is it not? No common language. No common language. Boy, oh boy. This has given me literally a career. When I fell down the MDM rabbit hole over a decade ago, I was like, man, this is such an easy problem to solve. I got hired. Tianke, hi. I got hired as a consultant to answer the question of how many customers do we have. And I thought, like, man, this is going to be the easiest SOW ever. Right? I'll go build some Cognos cubes. Yes, Cognos. We remember it well, fondly. I'll go build some cubes and I'll run some reports, and this will be the easiest thing ever. Turns out it was a 2-year engagement that we never ever figured out. We tried to launch MDM and it spiraled out of control. But this idea of no business language or no common language is a huge problem. Now, I happen to believe that languages, the language of marketing and the language of finance, the differences there will largely be obfuscated by AI. It will act as this universal translator, and it just magically happens. I can speak French and you can speak German, and we can have a normal conversation where we fully and completely understand each other just like that. Just like that. I was in a church yesterday where I was using ChatGPT to take photographs of some of the text I was reading, and it was the translation was instant, and I think it was accurate. But this is the idea of we can do this. We can have a common language across business. It's historically been a roadblock, but I think that AI was going to go a long way to help solving this. Oh, and by the way, I would argue all semantic layers. The slide that Zach, I would say that the genesis there is the fact that we don't have a common language, right? The fact that marketing speaks a different language than finance. And that's okay, they're both right. For years and years, I falsely believed in this narrative that I needed to force everybody to speak one language, and then my MDM initiative failed. Shocker. One way to think about this is that the language of business really kind of exists across 3 levels: functional, cross-functional, and enterprise-wide. And they're all right. And how do you do all of them? The challenge there is that you've got 3 sets of rules instead of 1 set of rules. We find it hard enough to come up with 1 set of rules. Now we're talking about N sets of rules based on how the data is being used or who's creating it or the use case. That's where AI is going to help us. It'll help us automate the governance policies and have N sets of governance policies. Outdated operating model and mindsets. Oh boy, this is another kind of big challenge here. Our operating models within the data and analytics world are, I would argue, largely broken. We tend to cling to really deterministic ways of thinking. We embrace useless platitudes like garbage in, garbage out that don't help anybody. Garbage in, garbage out is what is a reduction of what is typically a relatively complex issue. The fact that finance and marketing speak different languages. And the fact that the data in a CRM is structured different than data in an ERP, and calling that a garbage issue, well, it's not. Data is structured in CRMs different than ERPs by design. By design. So we need to get away from this idea of like highly deterministic, all or nothing type ways of thinking. We need to be more probabilistic. We need to acknowledge that the old ways of doing business don't really serve us very well. Old approaches to data governance, old framework-driven approaches where the book that is driving these frameworks really hasn't fundamentally changed in 25 years. It's called the DM Bach, by the way. I've got a copy, it's near and dear to my heart. I love that book, but it drives me nuts, because we need to update it. That aside, there's a lot we need to do here about thinking and operating differently. All right, what's the solution? Well, spoiler alert, it is what I am calling a next generation semantic layer. Again, this is forward-looking, okay? I reserve the right to be wrong. Zach showed a rather robust definition of what EK calls a semantic layer today. This is what I call a semantic layer tomorrow. It's an architecture first and foremost. So this is not something you can go buy. This is a collection of things, a collection of solutions, a collection of tools, so keep that in mind. It is all about creating knowledge-based insights. Knowledge-based insights. and here's where things get interesting, to map the languages of business to information and data. To map procure to pay, quote to cash, supplier onboarding, revenue recognition, to map those languages, and I would argue they are languages, to map those languages to information and data. This is what I think a next generation semantic layer will do, is bring these worlds together. To automate and to enable AI-based systems to start automating them. So again, would love to have conversations about where you think I got it right and where you think I got it wrong, because I'm just the guy with the microphone. I don't have any special, secret sauce. I can't see into the future. I think all of us will have unique insights here, and I'd love to hear them. Well, I'm a Gartner guy, and we love to look at the world through what we call critical capabilities. Bum, bum, bum. What are some of those? What are some of the pieces of this architecture? Well, one, data governance. There will still be a need here for rules. Remember the slide where I've got left-hand side humans, right-hand side machines? As we progress along that path, we will continue to need to manage rules. We will define the rules, and we are defining the rules largely today. Increasingly, the machines will define the rules, but rules there will be, and oversight there needs to be. So the machines aren't going to take over the rules for how we recognize revenue. Machines aren't going to necessarily take over the rules in the short term for how we identify fraud. They're just not going to do it. There needs to be some idea of data governance here. This includes just straight up old cataloging and profiling and discovery. It also includes MDM. It also includes data quality, the beginning. But these solutions will drastically change. How MDM operates today is not how it will be operating in 5 years. Yes, there will still be a need to have some alignment around how we call customers and accounts and suppliers and on, but it's going to look different. Those interfaces are going to look different because of number two. At a certain point, agents will start making recommendations to us. There will be agents sitting in MDM systems. There will be agents sitting in data quality systems. There will be agents sitting everywhere making recommendations. Hey, is this what you meant? Or, by the way, I've done some analysis and I think that this would be a more appropriate data quality rule to apply for this use case. That's where we're going, and I think I see that as a part of a next-gen semantic layer, including workflow management. Of course, AI-based profiling analysis, including what I think there will be multiple small language models. This is, of course, our beloved knowledge graphs play a role here, and other components here based largely analyzing data at scale, transactional data, metadata, master data, analyzing that stuff at scale. Yes, it's knowledge graphs, but it's not exclusively knowledge graphs. I talked about agents already. Obviously, integration across the data management ecosystem. Obviously. And lastly, what most people think kind of are classic semantic layers, data virtualization and integration. I think all of this together, believe it or not, starts to look a little bit like what my friends at Gartner would call the data fabric, but goes much farther than that. So the original vision of the data fabric that I was involved in helping define was all about automating data management and business process management. It was analytical uses of data and operational uses of data. The vision of that data fabric, I would argue, was kind of changed and warped for a lot of forces that are beyond my control and that I don't fully have a grasp on. But we need to go well beyond number 6, and we need to go well beyond just a data fabric or a data mesh. All right, what do we need to do? I prefer having presentations that actually talk about things we can do, actions we can take instead of talking kind of theoretical and conceptual. This does require building out some idea of a roadmap, right? If you were one of the 30% of people that were kind of in, or I think it was 30, close to doing the kind of the learning and planning, other than doing, and this would relate to people who are doing as well. So like 60% of you, I think this is relevant. How do I come up with a roadmap? How do I define a path from where I am to where I need to be? How do I build this bridge from data to knowledge? How do I do these things? Well, again, there's no one simple tool here. You won't be able to go buy this. You can't go buy this. So there's things we need to do. I think the most important thing we can start to do is learn by doing, just doing. I'm very MVP driven. I'm all about agile. Get out there and start doing this stuff. If this is the first time, sorry, I'm going to sell a little bit. I'm breaking the rules. Okay, EK has been doing this for years, right? The technologies all largely exist already. Knowledge graphs exist already. Agents exist already. All of this stuff just exists already, and finding a way to put it together in a meaningful way, finding a way to find the right use cases, find the right business partners internally, find somebody with some acute pains who would benefit from having better insights on fraud, or having better insights on how to onboard a supplier, or how to shorten our wait times for material delivery, or optimize our inventory of our products. Find use cases. They're out there. They're out there. And these problems, we can start to do this today, folks. We can start to do this today. You're going to hear more from far smarter people than me throughout the day today about how they are doing that. Learn by doing. This is not a 7-year thing. I'm going to wait 7 years. We can start doing this actually right now. Boy, I'll tell you. A little sip of water. As optimistic and bullish and excited as I am about AI, I'm also really concerned. We've got just massive knowledge gaps in our world around how this stuff works. I've been traveling the world for 2 years since the explosion of ChatGPT and since we reopened after the pandemic, talking to CDOs, and I still, to this day, I still hear people say, well, the data in my warehouse is so bad, I can't train an LLM on that. And how am I going to train an LLM? Because, garbage in, garbage out. I got all this garbage, and then the AI is going to not work. Okay, so first of all, do you have 12 to 15,000 GPUs just kicking around like extra that you're not using today? Chances are you actually don't. Do you have upwards of $20 million to operate those GPUs for 3 months straight, right? Do you have a need that says, yeah, I need to go build something that has already been commoditized? Models have already been commoditized. Nobody's going to go building a large language model. I am blown away by hearing that there are a lot of people in leadership roles who don't know the difference between training and fine-tuning. We'll fine-tune some open source LLMs. Maybe we will. Maybe we will find a way to fine-tune them towards some of those business languages that I was talking about. You do all that. You do fine-tuning, by the way, with text, with narratives, with stories, with human beings that are fine-tuning models. But my message here is we desperately need to up our game as data leaders, as data practitioners around how AI works, particularly the care and feeding of AI from a data perspective. What data is needed by an LLM? What data is needed by machine learning? What data is needed to run a complex regression? What do we need to do? If you go talk today, like this one, it just blows me away. We have data scientists that are largely operating. Ian, sorry, I'm not. We got a data scientist in the room. Thank you for showing up today. You're brave. Who are largely operating completely independently of traditional data management functions, where you've got CDOs that are saying things like, well, I need to double down on my foundations and do MDM and data quality better so my data scientists can build models. Well, those data scientists aren't going to MDM hubs to extract data out of MDM hubs. They're not. They're going straight to source. They're pulling data out of source systems and they're running custom Python, custom R in order to do things like entity resolution, in order to do things like data quality rules. They're not going to those systems. Again, that's where the puck is. Data scientists are going to where the puck is going to be. How do we bring these roles together? I think there will be benefits to bring these roles together because data scientists don't need to rewrite Python scripts every time they solve the same problem. There's obviously some scalability there. But just the idea, you read the news. Sorry, I'm getting fired up now, folks. Getting fired up. And people saying, well, 80% of models don't get to production. That's an example of an old way of thinking. 20% success rate in an R&D function is pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. Data scientists operate in a highly experimental, highly iterative way. And if we're as data professionals saying that 80% of models not getting to production is an indicator of poor performance of a data science function, well, then we need to learn how data science functions work. Sorry, and rant. Other things we can do today. Probably a lot of folks here are already, hi Lula, 5-minute warning? Yes, thank you. I'm gonna have to wind me down. Do complex rags. Start tinkering with smart agents if you haven't already done this. Yes, there are technology providers. Like I watched somebody create a smart agent in 5 minutes using Microsoft's OpenAI Studio. Not saying Microsoft is the best. There's others out there. But you can create agents today. You can do this today. Embrace complex RAG patterns. Figure out how you integrate knowledge graphs into retrieval augmented generation processes. Figure out how you can take the insights from a knowledge graph and cook it into a vector database to start grounding some of the behavior of these LLMs to mitigate, not eliminate, but to mitigate hallucinations. We can do this today. We can do this today. We can tell the business things about the business they didn't even know about. That's the joy, that's the beauty of knowledge graphs. But how do we take that and actually start putting it into a real world use case? Like a chatbot that maybe interprets our HR handbook or some other internally facing chatbot where we mitigate any sort of risk associated with how they behave. Oh, I could talk about governance forever and ever. We need to rethink data governance because the stuff we've been doing have not been working very, very well. However, the number one thing that data and analytics people need to do is to get their hands around structured data. Most unstructured data. They already have their hands around structured data. Sorry, it's the coffee. Unstructured data. Most unstructured data in large enterprises is largely ungoverned. It's SharePoint servers, right? It's FAQs sitting out on web servers. This is how the Air Canada use case came about. If you're familiar with Air Canada getting sued because their smart agent screwed up with misquoting a bereavement policy. But again, I need to double down on foundations, and those foundations today largely don't include unstructured data sources. They largely do not. I will argue on that one as well. That unstructured data sitting in all these formats, we need to find a way to start profiling this stuff and tagging this stuff at a minimum. Yes, I'm talking about a next-gen semantic layer. People, process, technology. Technology is not a silver bullet. People, we need to educate ourselves on AI. We need to hire people like product managers, I would argue. We need to hire more librarians and more ontologists, I would argue, into traditional data and analytics roles. We need to change how we operate at a people level. Process, we need to absolutely positively change. Our data governance processes are just not working very well. We need to change how we interact with our customers, our consumers of data and analytics insights. And I use the word customers purposefully. Yes, technology. Lastly, we need to become what I would call a data hero, a modern data leader. Yes, the shirt. Sorry, I'm advertising. Not selling. I'm actually working on a book. It'll be published next year by Wiley, talking about how to be better leaders in the data space. We need to do things like assuming our customers have positive intentions. People aren't out there trying to make our jobs harder by messing with data quality. They just aren't. They're trying to do the best with the resources and time and the money and the people that they have. Modern data leaders shun deterministic, all or nothing thinking, including the useless platitude of garbage in, garbage out. What is garbage to one may be gold to another. Imagine a world where the chief operating officer of Frito-Lay kept complaining that their corn was garbage, or the CEO of Anheuser-Busch was complaining that their water was garbage. What happens when we say this over and over and over and over and over again? I would say it creates a kind of a culture of dysfunction. We need to treat our customers like customers. If we're serious about data products, then we need to embrace product management and start thinking about the data and analytics function differently. This one is huge. See data quality as an opportunity, not a burden. I talk to so many data leaders who talk about data quality like it's this massive burden. It's like, oh, man, it gives us jobs. Data quality is an opportunity. Not to mention the fact that a lot of the things that we call poor quality are simply a function of having different business languages. That is not a quality problem. I will argue that one until I am out of breath. The fact that marketing speaks differently than finance is not a quality problem. It's by design. And we need to rapidly engross what's called the growth mindset. That's what my book is about. So when it comes out, I would be honored if some of you look at it. In conclusion, all right, Gen AI is changing the way we operate. It's moving the ground under our feet. The opportunities here are absolutely positively massive. Our legacy systems are ill-suited to support the pivot from data management to knowledge management. Next generation semantic layer is that bridge between the world of where the puck is and the world of where the puck is absolutely positively going. And there are things that we can do now, right now, to better prepare us for this brave new world. Going back to hockey. This is a rhetorical question. The answer is going to be yes. So we're nodding. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Zach. Thank you for having me. I would invite you, please, if we're not already, connect with me on LinkedIn. I put out a ton of content. Phil could attest. I put out a lot of content. I do a once a month, Ask Me Anything. I've got a podcast called CDO Matters. Please connect with me. We're creating a community here. Today's event is all about community, and I'm doing the same. And you can ask me anything at least once a month, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn. Just send me a message. Thank you, everybody, for having me today.